El Dorado. Welcome back to another episode of Lunchtime Live. Today, we are continuing our celebration of Women's History Month here in the month of March. And today, I'm going to read to you a couple of different short passages about different women from a wonderful, wonderful book called Little Dreamers, Visionary Women Around the World by the author and illustrator Vashti Harrison. She has a wonderful style, has created a number of books that really celebrate not only the achievements of women throughout history, but also those of people from all different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, and really puts a spotlight on people of color who have made a difference in our world. And the book today, again, does really hit on people from all over the world. We're going to read about a few different people, and then I'm going to share a longer video with you today because she is also the illustrator, Vashti Harrison, and has a really beautiful, kind of simple style across all of her books. So if you're interested, you can join and learn how to draw like her. So after our reading, go ahead and grab a pencil and some paper if you'd like, and you can practice drawing some of the types of people that she draws in her books. If you like today's book, it will be available in our library starting next week, as well as a couple of others by her. So I hope you enjoy, and let's go ahead and take a look at the book. All right, so here is the cover of our book for today, Little Dreamers, Visionary Women Around the World. And today I'm reading our story from Sora, which is our ebook, our digital book and audiobook collection that we have in Boulder Valley School District. And I've actually connected my Sora account to my Louisville Public Library account so I can access even more books. And that's where this one came from. But again, we will have this book available in our library very, very, very soon. So this book is called Little Dreamers, Visionary Women Around the World by Vashti Harrison. What exactly does the word visionary mean? Well, if you could think of having a vision as being able to see something, the women featured in this book were able to see kind of a little bit into the future. They took their talents and their knowledge of the world and tried to see where things might be heading in the future and tried to sort of shift the way things developed in our world and made contributions, did things that made a big impact to help get to those future goals. So we're going to learn about women who discovered and created things related to space and astronomy, one of the world's first computer programmers, right? All these things that were kind of ahead of their time and really were looking into the future, and that really paved the way for future developments in these different areas. So I hope you enjoy. This is, let's see, I mentioned we're going to read a few different short stories today. So let me go ahead and load up our first one. The first piece we're going to read today is about the astronomer, poet, and mathematician Wang Zhenyi. And she's from China. She lived a pretty short life. She was born in the year 1768 and passed away in the year 1797. Let's see if I can make this a tiny bit bigger for you here. Okay. Again, take a look at the artwork style. You'll see that similar style reflected in all of the different stories we'll see today. Born into a family of scholars during the Qing dynasty, Zhenyi was fortunate to receive an education, rare for a girl in her time. Her grandfather had an extensive collection of books, something that was even rarer, since the emperor was strict about what was acceptable literature. She learned everything, from astronomy and math to poetry. She didn't spend all her time indoors, though. She learned archery and equestrian arts as well. Most of what we know about Zhenyi comes from her writings. She left behind 12 volumes of poems and many academic papers. She used her poetry to describe and critique the world around her. She often wrote about inequality between men and women, as well as other social injustices. If the emperor was strict about the books people could have, imagine how brave Shen Yi had to be to openly criticize him in her poetry. Shen Yi especially loved the stars and published several volumes of math and astronomy for beginners. In her day, many of the phenomena in the sky were commonly considered supernatural. She was confident there was a logical explanation for cosmic events, and she proved it by explaining eclipses. Using a table as Earth, a lamp as the sun, and a mirror as the moon, she demonstrated that when the three bodies line up, either the moon blocks our view of the sun, or Earth blocks the sun's light from reaching the moon, thus forming an eclipse. Above all, she wanted to share her knowledge with people. So before she passed away, she made sure all her poems and academic papers would be kept safe. Many were published after her death. Shen Yi made a life for herself that was not constricted by rules of what a woman could or could not be. She saw a world with limitless possibilities for girls and potential for anyone to have the freedom to study whatever they want. So I really love that explanation of Wang Zhenyi for a few reasons. First, we talk about how she used her voice to help promote equal rights for women, right? Because remember, throughout history, women haven't always had the same rights as men and the same freedoms as men. So we learned that it was pretty rare for a girl to even get an education. It's hard to imagine now, but was not uncommon in the 1700s and even later than that. And she was one of the first people to study and write about the eclipse. You probably are a little young to remember, but a couple of years ago, we had the ability to see a solar eclipse here, which is not something that we get to experience very often. That's when the moon blocks our view of the sun. So it actually kind of went dark during the day. And she was one of the first people back hundreds of years ago to write about this and document it so others can learn about it. Pretty incredible stuff. The next woman we're going to read about today is named Ada Lovelace, and she lived in the 1800s, specifically between the years 1815 and 1852. And she was known as one of the first computer programmers. She was born in England, and was able to use her passion for math and science to make significant developments in the world of computer science. But kind of before computers were even a thing. So let's talk about what Ada Lovelace contributed to our world. What happens when imagination and technology collide? Well, Ada herself was a physical embodiment of such a collision. Her father was the poet Lord Byron, and her mother, Anne Isabel Milbank, loved math. Perhaps the combination of her parents' sensibilities was what made Ada so special. Her unique view of the world meant that she didn't just dream of being a fairy, she also knew she needed to devise a way to fly. Ada grew up during the Industrial Revolution, a time when scientists and artists gathered to discuss new inventions and creations. At one such meeting, Ada saw the mathematician Charles Babbage demonstrate a mechanical adding machine. Think about what that might be today. A mechanical adding machine. Ada asked Charles to mentor her, but he turned her down at first. He was working on something new, the analytical engine, inspired by mechanical looms used in the textile industry. That's like fabrics. To prove herself to him, Ada translated an Italian article about his new machine into English. She added her own notes, making her translation nearly 3 times as long as the original article. She understood that the analytical engine could be programmed to do limitless tasks and described a formula for programming it to calculate a mathematical sequence of numbers known as the Bernoulli numbers. Ada had a vision of a general-purpose computer a century before anyone would build one. That's 100 years before anyone would build the first computer. Although Ada and Charles finally worked together, they never built the analytical engine. Ada's contributions were unappreciated until the 1950s, when her translation of the article was discovered. Her work on the Bernoulli numbers is considered the first ever computer program, and made Ada the first computer programmer. Ada believed firmly in what she called poetical science, the synthesis, the merging of creativity and technology, and that human imagination could be combined with technology to kickstart the future. Now, that's a lot to process there, but think about that for a second. In the early 1800s, right, at least 100 years before a computer even existed, Ada was able to envision, was able to imagine a device that could be programmed to do things. And it's hard to imagine, again, like today, so much of our world depends on computers, and computers do different things based on programming that humans do. Right? We write code, we write programs that give instructions to the computer. And Ada was imagining how that could work before computers even existed. But she saw the potential to take creativity and technology and to smush them together to create new and incredible things. And that is no different than what our technological world looks like today. Computer programmers imagine something that they want to exist that might not exist yet. And then they build it using computer code. And they give that code to the computers to run those programs. So she was able to kind of see the potential of that before it was even a real thing. And that many years later, over 100 years later, her research and what she wrote was used by computer scientists when the first computers were being developed to actually develop that. So really awesome stuff. And it just really goes to show that no dream, no vision is too big. You can imagine something that you think should exist in the world, that can help the world, and you can begin to work to make that thing happen in some small way. And you never know how your contribution can make an impact farther down the road, possibly after you're long gone. Right? And that's really incredible stuff that we're seeing with some of these visionary women from around the world. There are a lot more wonderful stories in this book, and I'm going to let you check that book out if you're interested here in the library. But for now, I would like to go ahead and offer you the opportunity to learn how to draw some of these figures. And maybe there's a visionary woman in your life, or a visionary woman that we didn't talk about today that you know about that you'd like to try to draw in this style. The author and illustrator, Vashti Harrison, of our book today, is actually going to be the one teaching you how to draw in her style. And this video is a little long. It's about 14 minutes. So if you're interested in sticking around, that's amazing. I'd love for you to give it a shot. If you're not, I totally understand that too. But if you do create something, as always, I would love to see what it is you create. Thanks for joining me today, friends. We'll do one more Women's History Month Lunchtime Live next week before spring break. I hope to see you there. See you later.
Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing okay during these crazy times of self-isolation. I figured I could share a little drawing demo today. A few of you guys missed my live session where I showed you how to draw the character from my books, Little Leaders and Little Dreamers and Little Legends. So today I'm going to go through that process and show you how to draw their face. Okay, so let's get started. I am just going to use a plain piece of paper. You can use whatever you like. Printer paper. This is just drawing paper. I'm going to use a new sheet. And today I'm going to draw with a basic pencil. You can use a number 2 pencil. You can use some colored pencils. Some of my favorite tools are Prismacolor Premier colored pencils, especially the black one is an important one to have on hand. I think I'm going to color in with my Prismacolor. markers. I also have some markers that I got from Flying Tiger. So these are definitely more inexpensive, but work just as great as these other ones. And then I have some colored pastel pencils. So we'll see how this all comes together. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, but first we'll get started with our sketch. So this part I always do in pencil just to make sure that, if I make any mistakes, I can kind of go over it over and over again and, fix it a little bit later. So when I draw the little leader or little dreamer character, I start with a circle. So it's important that it's not a perfect circle. So I have my shape. You can totally do all of the facial features on any face shape. You can make a square face or a triangle face. Honestly, it will be your own creation. So I'm just giving you building blocks and you can take them wherever you want. So when I do the rest of the face, which is pretty simple, you guys can see, I do everything with the letter C. So the letter C normally looks like this. I'm going to take that shape and roll it down so it looks like that. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to draw one here and one here. Now, I draw the eyes closed because I like to imagine that the characters in my books are little children dressing up as these famous people, kind of closing their eyes and imagining themselves in the worlds of these famous people. You guys are more than welcome to open the eyes if you like. You can do that by adding another line there, adding an eyeball, some eyelashes, however you like. But for me, I really like this really calm, sweet pose. For me, it makes it feel like these kids are really just imagining the worlds of these wonderful people. So you can take that shape and flip it upside down and do another C here and another C here to make some eyebrows. Okay, we're more than halfway there. You can keep that same shape going, put a nice little small one in the center, and then a nice big one, flip it one more time for the smile. And that is the basis for this character. And from here, you can go anywhere. You can literally turn it into anybody. Clearly, you guys can see in my books, I've told the stories of lots of different people. So Little Dreamers, Visionary Women Around the World is a collection of biographies of women artists and scientists from around the world. So clearly there's lots of cool, famous people in here. And then Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History is African American women leaders and activists and all kinds of things. So today I figured I might take it back for you guys, and you guys might have seen this on my Instagram before. Here's a picture of me when I think I was in probably second or third grade. So I'm going to draw a little Vashti. So I'm going to take note of my braids, and pretty much just the hair shape is going to sell it here. So I might just leave that in the corner so you guys can keep a look. Okay, so that's my basic sketch. I'm going to use this is an alcohol marker. It blends really well to do some color. It's a little bit desaturated, but that's okay. I think it'll work out pretty good for what I'm going for. So I'm going to just like kind of lighten up some of these lines just because I don't want it to spread or bleed into my color. So, okay. So one of the tricks that I learned to work with these kinds of markers is to kind of treat it like watercolor and use kind of a wet on wet technique and kind of pull the color out. You guys can see it's kind of blending my pencil lines, which is kind of a bummer. I was hoping it wouldn't do that. That's okay. We can fix that. Okay. I'm going to use my colored pencil. Can you see how dark the Prismacolor pencil is? It's way darker than the pencil, the regular pencil. That's why I like it. And these are the Prismacolor Premier colors. They're much darker. So I have this pastel pencil, which is really good for adding a little bit more saturation and more blending. So I think this might work for me. So I'm just going to very lightly add some extra color here. I'm wearing my headphones right now, so I'm not sure if you guys can hear all of my scratching. Or if you just hear me talking. Okay, that's kind of adding a little bit more saturation. I'm going to add some of this red. Doing skin tone in this way is actually a little bit more helpful because, no one's skin is one single color. It changes. It's many different colors all in one. So I like adding in these different hues, the reds and the browns. Sometimes you need blues for shadows and highlights and things like that. Maybe I'm going to add some like rosy cheeks. This is a feature that I put in some of my work. It definitely is like, it comes from inspiration from kind of classic drawings. It's an interesting feature that I wonder about a lot, but I do like it. I think it adds an extra little something to look at. And because I don't have more colors with me, I'm going to rely on it to help me make this drawing come out a little bit better. Sometimes I limit myself to only the handful of tools that I just grab and just try to make it work. Like even though I'm in my studio right now, I could turn around and grab all the other colors I want and make it perfect. But sometimes I like limiting myself to only a few tools because sometimes you get more interesting work out of that. Okay. I'm going to try and use this marker, this brown marker for the braids. My braids look really black, right? But there is some brown in there. So I want to start with the lighter color and then use my black colored pencil to add the darker parts. So now I'm going to go in and kind of isolate each one of these braids. I don't think I'm going to do all the details in the braid, but just adding some light and shadow helps it feel like there's 1,000 of them there instead of just one big line. was in the second grade, this might have been when this photo was taken, around the second grade, I had braids like this in, and we watched A Little Princess in school. We were watching it over the course of several days, and it was getting sadder and sadder, and I was so grateful that I had these braids, and I brushed them in front of my face so that no one could see that I was crying in the middle of class. So braids do double duty. Just kind of coloring it in, adding a few scribbles to kind of make it feel like there's more detail here. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could add some kind of lumps to make it look like there's a bunch of strands being braided. Okay. Later in the week, I will show you guys how I do draw the rest of the body. But today we're just going to work on the face. This is Art 101, and we will graduate and move on to Art 102. And I will see you guys there. Until then, I would love to see you guys do your own little leader drawings. And now that you know how to draw the basic face, you can turn it into anybody that inspires you. You can turn it into yourself, your favorite author, illustrator, who knows. But post them online and show me, and I will be around because I will not be leaving my house. Alright, so there you have it. This one is Vashti. And then I can sign it. Done. Alright guys. Now you can go do it, and I want to see your drawings, so post them, and I'll see you guys soon.